Welcome to the Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast, a show created to help painting company owners build a thriving painting business that does well over $1 million in annual revenue. I'm your host, Brandon Pierpont, founder of Painter Marketing Pros and creator of the popular PCA educational series, Learn, Do, Grow, Marketing for Painters. In each episode, I'll be sharing proven tips, strategies, and processes from leading experts in the industry on how they found success in their painting business. We will be interviewing owners of the most successful painting companies in North America and learning from their experiences. In this series titled Success Looks Different, Shane Fast of Renew Painting will be discussing his surprising journey from ministry to painting and the many lives he has impacted, lessons he's learned, and counterintuitive approach he has taken along the way. It is a 6-part series. In episode 1, Shane discussed his unlikely path to painting and his bold vision for the future. In episode 2, Shane covered the initial hurdles he faced, both personally and professionally, and how he overcame them. In episode 3, Shane dived into his decision to professionalize and scale and the action steps that allowed him to do so. In episode 4, Shane laid out Renew Painting's core values and how that impacts every aspect of the business. In episode 5, this episode, Shane will walk through his counterintuitive approach to hiring and sales and the hedgehog and flywheel his business run by. And in episode 6, the final episode, Shane will break down his transition to a hybrid model as well as his vision for the future of Renew Painting. If you want to ask Shane questions related to anything in this podcast series, you can do so in our exclusive Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast forum on Facebook. Just search for Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast forum on Facebook and request to join the group. Or type in the URL facebook.com/groups/Painter Marketing Mastermind. Again, that URL is facebook.com/groups/Painter Marketing Mastermind. There you can ask Shane questions directly by tagging him with your question so you can see how anything discussed here applies to your particular painting company. What's up, brother?
Hey man, how are you?
I am good. Welcome back. I know you and I briefly touched on this. I don't know whether it was on one of the episodes or offline, but you definitely look at hiring and sales and a little bit of in a different order, I'd say, than the vast majority of companies.
Yeah, I know you said that, and I was kind of curious as to I was looking forward to hearing you tell me what you're hearing that draws that out for you to respond and say that.
Yeah, well, at the risk of kind of having a spoiler alert, I know you had focused more on the team and the
Okay.
hiring and kind of investing into that and that making that your primary focus early on and kind of your growth mechanism, really. And then the sales essentially following that. Whereas I think the more common outlook is, hey, let's sell, let's figure out how to sell, and then let's ensure that we build a good team in the process. So I found it really interesting.
That makes sense. Okay. Tracking. Tracking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna build this team and then we'll sell to fill the team versus we're gonna sell and then build the team to fulfill the sale.
Yeah. And we've had a little bit of I mean there's a give and take both ways there.
Sure.
We've had a little bit of both there. So yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, floor is yours, man. How'd you come up? What is your philosophy? Because I might have just totally butchered it. So you don't, if it's wrong, just say, hey man, that's not it. And then how'd you come up with your philosophy?
No, I think that we so a few years ago we looked at our um I'm sorry, I'm so distracted by I thought I had a quiet spot in my house and I'm listening to my wife and daughter yell like back and forth across the house right now. Like
This is real life, folks.
in the house.
Real life
So let's go confront adversity right here as
right
a
here.
ADD person. I gotta confront the adversity.
Yeah.
Okay. This is why I should be wearing headphones. All right. So that being said, yeah, Good to Great is a book that's, man, what's that book? Probably 20 years old or more now.
Mm.
But such good principles in there. One of the things he talks about is a flywheel. And so that's the the idea that once you have this big wheel and if you can just get it going a little bit and a little bit more, then eventually it starts kind of turning on its own, and Collins, I think it's Jim Collins, is that
Yep.
Jim's his first name, I think, right? Yeah. And so Jim Collins goes through different companies, and the Flywheel caught on in such a way that it's almost its own little sub book. And so I listened to that little sub book or pamphlet almost, small, a few years ago, and it just really got me thinking, okay, what the whole thing is like, what drives your economic engine? That's kind of like the how do you stay in, what's generating your business? How are you growing? All those kind of things. And so, one of the things he said was, okay, you should have no less than five, definitely no more than seven, probably somewhere in between in terms of how many things you're going to list out, So obviously a lot of this is audio, so I'll have to just kind of talk and at some
Yeah.
point, I don't know if we can hear where we share the visuals or how we do that, but our office did a great job turning them into an actual visual representation. And so at the top of our flywheel
Now
is
go ahead,
and this is probably what you're
Shane,
saying.
as you go through this, because we do have video here, most people consume this content via audio through a podcast, but we do have video, it goes on our YouTube channel. So what I'm going to do, actually for the first time ever, I don't think I've ever done this on a podcast episode, is I'll screen share. So as you go through this, we'll actually have it pulled up.
Okay,
So
this is great.
if
Yeah,
you're listening and you have this in the podcast, go check it out on YouTube, Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast. Check this episode out on YouTube, and you will see what Shane's talking about. All right, brother, you're ready to rip.
right. Yeah, we can actually look at the hedgehog real quick because those are his three. And actually, I use that question drives your economic engine, but those are his three questions are, what drives your economic engine? What can you be the best in the world at? What are you deeply passionate about? And, we've gone through the core values and we talked through that. And I talked about how we use them as a filter. We want to serve people, when they're a mission statement, we talk about really impacting people in our community. And that can be done simply through doing a phenomenal paint job. It can. It doesn't have to be more than that. Certainly in our case, we don't want to be less than that. And what other things can we do along the way that are really going to drive everything forward, right? And so I'm of the firm belief that there are a lot of people in our area that can produce a quality painted surface. And that might seem silly to say because we want to be the best or whatever, but let's just be real. Like there are literally homeowners that can probably paint as good as professionals at points, right?
Sure.
And so producing a good paint job to me is not enough. It doesn't make sense. That's not really, if you look at this question here, what can you be the best in the world at? There's no way we're going to be the best in the world at painting something. I would say our cabinet coatings rival anybody in the area, and I'd stand behind that. But is it the best? That's such a subjective term. A, B, what's the difference between six people who can produce a 9.5 out of 10 on cabinets? Nobody's going to discern the difference between that. Most people can't discern the difference between the eight and
Yeah.
versus a 9.5.
I mean, the painting is
And so,
it's kind of the price of admission. Right? If you're running a painting
so
company, you should be able to have a solid painting product.
Yeah, and you have to, if we're going to differentiate ourselves, which is what this whole like exercise he does is about, is what's going to differentiate us. It's not going to be the best painted surface, because again, we have to be realistic and realize that a lot of people can do that. And so it's can we, yeah, it's no less than producing a quality product, which is what we kind of finally came up with, produce a quality product, but it's really the latter part while creating a premium customer experience. So it's that premium customer experience that we believe we really can be the best at. Maybe not in the world. I think it's a funny, yeah, his question there is kind of funny. And again, he's working with like your Apples and whatever kind of thing. But if we talk about, can we be the best in our area at this, which of course means that I'm borrowing ideas from the Michael Cheneys of the world and the Nick Slavics and the, whoever else, Josh out in California. I mean, there's all kind of people I'm borrowing ideas from, right? So, but it's can we be the best in the Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina area at producing a quality product with a premium customer experience? And so that's really kind of what we anchor on and we talk about a ton, especially in the offices. Let's figure out how to do that better constantly. How do we
Yeah.
get better? How do we get better? How do we get better?
The example that
You know
I
that?
gave in the last episode with the fence company employing me, to call them back at specific intervals and speak with different members of their team. And, maybe I needed to come in and kind of provide a tutorial on whatever CRM software they've now used so I can figure out when they're coming out to the house. That would probably not be a premium customer experience.
Yeah, yeah, that was
This is.
yeah. Now an example of that is, was this about last say, well, I was first told the idea sometime early last year, told again in spring, and then finally said, okay, we got to get our act together and do this. But we now have it set up to where I think it's 50 or 60 seconds. And it's just, if you schedule a quote with us, then there's an automated text and email that goes out with the link to the YouTube video a day before that quote that says, here's what you should expect when we come out.
Awesome.
That was not a very high bar. Now, admittedly, I had to be hit in the head almost to get it done. And that has more to do with my, lack of organization than anything else. But that to me, that and then folders that we leave behind when we quote that tell different things. Hey, if you're getting multiple quotes, here's questions you should ask, different your FAQs, or
Yeah.
here's your expectations for interior, exterior cabinets. Sure, all this was on our website, but finally putting it into a place where we can hand it to somebody. Yeah, so some of this stuff is just, are we going to actually do what we say we're going to try to do? And that's what it kind of came down to for me, was empowering Hannah essentially to say, go do it. Like I'm saying, go spend the money, do whatever it takes. Let's do it. Let's execute it.
I want
Now,
to, Shane, I want to pause you for 1 second just because you're doing a couple things, and I think you're viewing those things as very basic, and they are basic in the sense that they're not overly complicated to implement, but they put you head and shoulders above the vast majority of contractors. And so the what you just put, and it's something we integrate with all of our partners at Painter Marketing Pros, but CRM, a customer relationship management software, so a software that essentially can automate some communication with your leads and your clients, something that consistently sends out an email, a text at different intervals prior to your quote or after the quote, prior to the project or during the project, status updates, things like that. You sending that out prior to you delivering the proposal and then saying, hey, this is what you can expect, versus the fence company that I've been talking about. I don't know who's coming, when they're coming, if they're coming. I know I've paid them half for the project. I don't know, what's happening. Having that video and then what you're doing too. So there's so many things you're psychologically doing. You're differentiating your company from all the other painters that come out, because I guarantee you basically none of them are doing that. So even though it's a small thing, you had to sit down and actually set it up. You're now different in the client, in the lead's mind, in the customer's mind. So you have now stood out. You've given them a reason to pay you more money and still select you, which is ultimately sales. And then having that leave behind folder. There's something powerful about having something physical that they have. Having that leave behind folder with a questions you should ask, because what's going to happen is you're going to leave the project, as you know. I'm obviously saying this for people listening. You're going to leave the bid. They're gonna have the number. They're gonna have your proposal. Hopefully, I think you deliver it on site, and then somebody out chucking a truck, and all these people are gonna come, and then at the end of the day, the consumer's not probably terribly educated on the scope of work that you propose versus what they propose, and maybe some of the differences there, and they're just gonna look at the numbers, and then at that point, you're a commodity. Well, this number's lower than that number, and so I kind of feel like it would be negligent of me to just choose a higher number for the same thing. So when you leave behind an FAQ, you are letting them know these are apples to oranges. It's not apples to apples. So make sure you ask it, because it's a post sale play, like a post sales call play. I just wanted to get into that because that stuff we preach so much at Painter Marketing Pros. And you're right. It's not hard, but you do have to sit down and you have to do it, because you're already spending hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours going out and delivering estimates, proposals, quotes, whatever you want to call them. So put in a little bit of work on that front end, putting in the CRM, the texting, the FAQ, the differentiation of your company, and then you're going to close more. You're going to sell for higher prices, have higher profit margins, and your life's just going to be better. I just want to hit that because that it's just so important.
Yeah, it's been, I mean, those things have really helped us. And I'm so proud of our team for, working on those things and coming up with them. Because it's one thing to say, "Hey, I heard this idea, it's really good," and another
Go in the
thing,
idea bin, the trash bin.
yeah, to have a team that could pull it off and that could hold me accountable to it. Okay, Shane, we're filming the video on this day.
Love
You
that.
know, wear this shirt, make sure you shave, whatever it is. And so, and so, yeah, so we have an awesome team. So we really do. Um, and so if we look at this attempt to create a premium customer experience, there's a lot of layers to that, right? There's a lot of layers to it. But if we go down, that also informed our flywheel as we started to think about, how do we create that premium customer experience? So it's a little bit ironic because I'm saying that, and then there's really not much on here that talks about a premium customer experience. And so it's a little bit counterintuitive, is to use your word, but to us, it's worked and it's made sense. So our starting place on the flywheel is to recruit passionate, hardworking people. We don't care if you know how to paint. We just want you to be passionate about something. I don't like coasters, in the sense, I mean, they're great for drinks, but for, just cruising through life, I just don't relate to those people very well, that just kind of float and cruise through life. I've always had to kind of scratch and claw and work, and I wasn't the best natural athlete, but I worked my butt off to get to the place where I could compete. So that's just that kind of mindset I like to have. You're passionate, you're hardworking, and we can teach you how to use a brush and a roller sprayer or whatever it might be. We can teach that. That's teachable. The other things are really hard to teach. Yeah, I mean, I think as a
Yeah.
parent, you have a chance to impart that. Past that, it gets pretty tough. So that goes into the next kind of section: develop, train, and empower them. So them being the passionate, hardworking people. So develop, train, empower. Those are three pretty loaded words. Train is probably the clearest of those. Train is going to be skills. So maybe they need to literally learn how to paint. Maybe they know how to paint. They need to learn how to do this aspect of the job. Maybe it's as simple as, hey, you're a great painter. You're ready to rock and roll. We got to teach you how to read a work order, how to use company cam, and how to use it properly. And these, different softwares, how to clock in, whatever it might be. I think the develop and empower are the tougher ones. Develop is hard for me, especially because I'm not a very patient person. I just kind of want things to go. I just want them to work. I came up with an idea, it should just work. And
If
that's not
only.
life. Yeah, that's not life. And that's fair. I had to be developed plenty through life. Still am. So I'm glad people did it for me, and we want to do it for our people. And so, that could be a great example of that is sitting down at Denny's with a disc profile and saying to Ryan, "Hey, we've been looking at going in this direction, and actually read your profile. What do you think about this idea?" And I think this might be something you'd really thrive in and really love. And it's like everybody has a light bulb moment, and it's taking that time to say, I'm gonna spend an hour looking through his disc profile. I'm gonna talk to our project manager about it. Then we're gonna meet with him. There's a good bit of time involved in that, right? But this guy's phenomenal. Everybody loves him. Our customers love him. The teammates love him. He crushes it. Well worth the time to take time and just figure out, how do we best position somebody to succeed, and then how do we continue to invest in that person? And I'll be the first to say, we're not the greatest at this, partly because again, I get going in so many different directions that our quarterly reviews suffer and some of those things. So we've got a lot of growing to do still in this, but that's our desire. So we feel like developing someone, training someone, and then empowering them. I mean, the word empower is pretty loaded. And so we're really trusting them to go out and essentially, hey, represent Renew Painting. You are Renew Painting, period. On the day to day at a customer's house, I am no longer Renew Painting. It was me by myself, me and a few people, sure, but not anymore. It's our team. It's our team of W-2s. It's our team of painting partners or teams of painting partners. They're representing Renew Painting to the customer now. So we've got to empower them to go forward and do that. So the idea for us here is if we invest in our people enough that they're going to then take care of our customers. So that might be the kind of counterintuitive
Yep.
part is let's invest in our people, and that's 401k, that's a health insurance option, that's PTO, that's holiday pay, that's profit sharing. I mean, there are other things that go into that there's boxes and there's buckets, there's competitive wages, all of those kind of things exist for sure. I didn't mean to skirt over those. So we do, we've kind of worked hard to figure out how to get some access to some of those things for our people. But we really believe that if we invest in our people, if we take care of them, that they're going to take care of our customers. They're going to want to do a good job because they're living out our core values. They're going to want to care for our customers because hopefully we're selecting customers that are joyful. Every customer doesn't make coffee when they show up at 7:30, but a lot of them do. And so that makes it much more enjoyable for everybody, for our people. And then so it's just that becomes its own cycle. And I'm getting on a tangent there, but if we can get, by God's grace, we have a lot of really good clients that we work with, and they love our people well. And that just, I think, incentivizes our people to love them, even better than hopefully they're already doing. And even, trying to outperform what they would normally do. And so anyway, I'm getting on a little tangent there, but so if we can deliver a quality product, that premium customer experience, then that's going to build our brand power and build customer demand. And that seems pretty obvious. And
Yeah,
that's your whole
so,
reputation, right? Go ahead.
I'll just kind of chime in on that deliver a quality product and a premium customer experience because, I mean, a happy team, they make happy customers. And I think a lot of business owners don't really think about that, right? They just kind of say, hey, if you do your job this way or that way, then you're going to make customers happy. But if teams are unhappy, that comes out and they're not likely to go the extra mile. They don't have joy in, joy in their work, right? That use of the word joy. And so I think a lot of what you're essentially walking through how to do that through all the different things, the way that you empower your team and the different benefits and competitive rate and everything that they're offered and ability to be recognized through core value usage that we talked about in the last episode. But at the end of the day, it's, if you have a really happy, flourishing, thriving team that genuinely like what they do, that feel valued, that feel appreciated at your company, it's a really good chance they're going to take great care of your clients.
Yeah, and I can prove that. There's been two in the last 3 months where I've sent somebody in afterwards, and there's an issue on the job. I think both these were working through a renovation company. So I'm not exactly sure where some of the communication broke down or something about what was supposed to be done or what wasn't, or these questions. And, I know one was an incredibly uncomfortable interaction. We were on the front porch and I had pictures. We had taken a picture before we soft washed it and after, and she was, she'd accused us of ruining the door, and we clearly had evidence. And it got to a place where she said, "Well, do you have a timestamp on that?" And I just said, "Okay, we'll stain your door. We're not going to go. We're not. This is not going to end well for anybody, right?" And so I got no level of pleasant interaction with this client. That's the first time I met her. I'd only worked through the renovation company. And I send Ryan there, and he texts myself and the project manager afterwards, "Hey, she's delighted. She's, extremely happy. I don't know what it is about y'all, but she seemed to love me." And so he said, "That's twice in the last quarter that you've sent me on these things that you kind of give me a heads up on, and they've been great."
Ryan shows
And
up and it's solved.
so, maybe, like you said, that joyful person coming in, being willing to say, "Hey, I'm going to win this person over." And so he's really doing that in those moments, which only enhances our reputation, obviously. And as our reputation, the brand power, those things increase, then customer demand will then increase as well.
Yeah.
And we looked at this wording, increased revenues. We looked at that wording a few different ways. We started to say something about pricing, and I thought, it's really not just, oh, we're gonna try to be a high price person. We're gonna try to be in line with the market that we feel like we're worthy of. So there's a normal kind of labor rate market, and then maybe on some things where we know we're exceptional with cabinets or other things or line washing, and so maybe we push that a little bit, or we do tweak and play with some of those things, but at the end of the day, we do believe that if we can produce that quality product, we can give a premium experience, then we can charge the upper end of that market rate, right?
Sure.
And then it's, well, what do we do with that? So we want to. It's not that we give all the money away. I don't. I clearly, you know, have my needs are met. I'm very very thankful for our team and the income that this generates. But we do want to say, okay, well, if we use a PEO system to get access to 401k and health insurance, there's a little bit of pay to play money there, and so we don't look at that as, well, that's a loss, but it's just an investment. Okay, we're going to pay a little higher on some of the payroll ends in order to get access to these things, because we want our people to build careers. So if somebody is in there at 27, they're stocking away that 3, 4, 5, or whatever percent they can, stock away. I guess simple as 3%, 401k is 6, or whatever it might be. As far as the employer match, I can't. There's all that
Mm,
different rules and stuff, but we want to encourage them. We essentially say, if you don't stock away the 3 or 4% or whatever it is, then we're giving that automatically. So if you don't do it, you're leaving money on the table. So you're
sure.
essentially leaving free money on the table. And so we really encourage them we can't mandate them to opt in, but we really encourage them to do that in order. So that's an example of where, hey, if we can produce that premium experience, build the brand power, and then we can increase our revenues as a company, and our overhead stays in a similar, fixed place or grows at a proportion, then we're going to have more resources to invest back into the team. That could be a vehicle. As soon as one of our people was hit, kind of sideswiped, took out his truck. And I said, hey, are you going to try to buy a new car? Or do you need me to get you a van? He's one of our best painters. And I'd offered it to him before. He said, no, I'm good. And then he came to me a week later, said, that would be really helpful. So it's, well, can I go out now and let me go find a van for this guy? So there's a lot of different ways that kind of plays out. But we feel like if we do increase the revenues and funnel resources to our team, then that's also going to enhance our reputation as a great place to work. We actually see this happen with subcontractors. We right now we have two different uh, guys who are members of subcontractor crews that have rubbed shoulders with our team and actually asked, "Hey, will y'all hire me? I'm no longer working for that company over there, but I see your culture, I see what you guys are about, and I want to work for you." And so we believe, we scroll back up to that. Sorry, I
Yeah.
jumped ahead. I didn't mean to jump quite ahead. So again, the way Collins writes is it just keeps going. So that's kind of the
Sure.
idea, is that, if you enhance your reputation as a great place to work, you're going to find more passionate, hardworking people. You invest in them, they take care of your people, blah, blah, blah. It just keeps going. And so our kind of counterintuitive attempt that we've been operating on now for a few years is, okay, what if we invest in our people first and really put them first and see how that goes?
Yeah.
Let's see if they take care of our customers. And I think we're seeing it work. So I feel like I'm
Certainly
still kind of
seems like
like
it.
watching it, but I think it's working. And we kind of developed a little bit of a model with the painting partners, which is what you're about to scroll onto. But go ahead and jump in if you have anything to interject.
Yeah, I just want to sidebar for a second because you mentioned a PEO, and I think some of our listeners aren't going to necessarily know what that is or the benefits of it. Could you just kind of quickly run through that?
What does it stand for? Do you remember?
I think it's preferred employee organization.
I'm
I
not
don't
sure.
know.
It's such a
It's
thrown around thing.
they essentially
Yeah,
are the
we're
ones that
we're
are
we're
employing your.
only we're not even a full year into it, so we're still kind of evaluating it. But what it
Yo,
what it does is it kind of puts you into a best
professional
I
employee organization.
There you go. So best I can say, it kind of lumps us into broader organizations. So now our people are employed by the PEO, technically not Renew Painting, but that gives access to the 401k, to better. It actually gives us a lot better workers' comp and GL rates as well,
Mm.
and access to health insurance because you get bundled into kind of a bigger group plan, and dental insurance, vision, some different kind of benefits there. I'm trying to think of some of the other things that obviously they do the payroll at that point.
There can be, I mean, there can be
So
liability reduction as well. So if you're hiring people from other states, which might be, might have certain, um, California comes to mind, right? California can be challenging from a labor law perspective. If you're hiring people from California and you're in maybe what would be considered a more traditionally business friendly state, there's certain protections that you can be afforded through that. And essentially, a PEO basically takes their scale and is able to secure all these rates and, in exchange for you essentially paying them something. And I think they are actually technically your employees technically are employees of the PEO, I think is the legal
yeah,
way that it's
yeah,
set up. And then
yeah.
they take some money from you.
That is very true. Yeah. And it's I mean, I heard several people do it. We're like I said, we're kind of not even a full year into it, so we're just kind of, we're still evaluating, but so far it's been a win. So
I haven't
it
heard of
was
a lot of painting companies using a PEO. That's interesting. What turned
huh.
you on to that?
Financial advisor, and,
Hmm.
he helps a lot of small business owners. He's like, hey, I think y'all should probably consider this and just talk to him and see. And so, the numbers, the insurance savings were enough for us to take a run at it, and let's see how this goes. So
And are there any, and I don't want to go too far off track here, but it's something that I don't think's come up in any of my other episodes. Are are there any drawbacks or anything that that are kind of bothersome to you aside from maybe having to pay them?
yeah, I mean, there's a little bit. It's a little. I mean, there's been a lot of learning curve kind of things, getting things rolled into the 401k, or so the setup kind of stuff took a little bit. Some of the reporting and things has been a little bit clumsy, or trying to get that dialed in. Hey, we actually want our salaries coded in like these ways versus like one big lump. And yeah, there's been some headaches that Hannah has dealt with a lot more than I have and handled. So I
Kind
would
of a
say
lot on
so
the
far,
HR side,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it hasn't been, have there been any kind of control issues or you're running into limitations that maybe you wouldn't have run into had you not used a PEO? Nothing
not
like
yet,
that.
not
Nice.
yet.
That's great, man. I mean, a lot of that stuff you'd have to go through anyways, right? If you're going to set up a 401k or certain things, there are just a lot of hoops to jump through.
And we had the simple IRA before, and we'd run payroll, and it'd tell you what each person you need to put in their stuff, and so you have to manually do that. At least now it just sweeps all in there. So there's definitely some benefits. So, the
Yeah.
insurance is being calculated automatically based on your payroll versus like having to deal with the audit. I hated the workers' comp audit every year.
Mhm.
That was so much work.
Well,
Um,
thanks
so
for diving into that. We'll scroll down to the painting partner model flywheel.
yeah, so and this is very fresh for us. I know we'll get into this the next episode, but we've kind of gone to this hybrid in the last roughly year. We started experimenting with it this time last year, and really probably leaned into it fully August, September last year. So the idea is, we want to recruit subcontractors who have character and who have ambition. The ambition word, I mean, character is pretty obvious. Ambition, either it's, hey, it might just be me and my wife. Me and I never want to go more than me and two guys, but I want to be like good. I want to be really good, and I'm trying to grow my own business. Or it's just, yeah, I have a high drive to be the best at my craft, and I have a small team. Or I'm okay. I hear stories. We don't have any like this right now, but hear stories of people who have subcontractor relationships and they have four or five crews. And I love that ambition, because I mean, why would I not love it? That's who we are, right?
Yeah.
And so, the character, the ambition, and the next one, intentionally develop, coach, and empower them. This is a little bit murkier for me right now. I had a long conversation with Matt Kuiper not too long ago, and one of the questions I asked him was, well, how long, we have somebody that fits that first profile, the character and ambition. How long do you keep working with them when there's a callback every job or there's an issue every job, but they're always coming back they're always fix it and they're always wanting to learn and they are showing signs of progress. And it's tough. There's no right answer, is essentially what he said. You sometimes he said, I've done it to where my best crew, subcontractor right now, we basically had to teach them how to paint when they started. And I've had some that we worked with, and you just essentially you're given enough rope to finally hang themselves because they're going to do a job and you're going to have to pay somebody else to come in and fix it. And so it's very subjective. So this is one that I'm a little bit like, but I will say that I mean, I just got a few texts yesterday from a sub, and he said, "Look, trying to make these decisions because I want to make Renew Painting look the best possible. I am team Renew Painting, and I want it to look as good as it needs to look, or as good as it should
That's
look.
the
Some
right
kind of
character.
right." And so his team is one we've had a lot of consistent, like, gotta fix this, gotta fix this. And so, we're still dealing with some of that. And so I'm trying to talk to him. Hey, I've tried this before. This worked a little bit. We just dialogue and bounce ideas around. But what I don't question is that his desire is to deliver that quality product and a premium customer experience. And what we have found, interestingly enough, is that people have tolerated some of the, hey, can you come back and fix this? Because they like his team so much. They're like, hey, they were delightful, they were whatever. And so it's not a big deal. We expect a few things to have to be fixed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the posture that we've gotten. And so the rest of this is kind of the same idea, build brand power, customer demand, higher prices, increase sub revenues. That's one where I did throw that high prices, but it's kind of, hey, if we can push the upper end of the market, then you're going to make more money.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And all those things together, reputation as a company that empowers business growth. We don't want to be that company that holds them back and says, "Oh, you can only work for us," or if we find out you're working for somebody else, or whatever. All the things that aren't legal anyway, right? Pays them by the hour. We hear a lot of our subs say, "Well, so and so pays us by the hour." It's not legal. It's not only illegal, but it's
Not a
holding you
sub.
back. It's like it's holding you back because we're going to say no. If this is a $5,000 job and you do it in 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day, I don't care. We really do not care. We just want to see you do it right, and as much money as you can take home, that's great. And so what we found is that these subs will talk to each other. They'll talk to the people at Sherwin. So it kind of starts to develop a little bit of reputation as, hey, if you need some work, you might call Renew Painting. And so that's kind of our goal. Again, I'm not, to be honest, even though this is my flywheel, we really cultivated this for this podcast because the W-2 one we had, and now we're looking and saying, okay, what does this look like with our painting partners? And so we're still kind of asking that question a
Did
little
you
bit.
guys just make this one? The painting partner model one?
I made it right when you and I first talking about this podcast 2 months ago. I was on the way out to Colorado for spring break with my family, and yeah, just I sketched it on a plane and I texted a picture to Hannah,
That's
and
cool, man. Prompted action. You took
and
action.
so, that's right. Yeah, yeah. Talking about this when you and I kind of started touching on it, I realized, well, I've got this for our in-house team. I don't have it for the painting partners. I want to know what it looks like, and I'm not fully convinced this is it. I think it could be. I'm not positive. So it's something where, again, we're very fresh into this subcontractor painting partner relationship. So we're learning a lot. And
Shane, what else do you need to accomplish at your business, from a fundamental perspective? Because what we can do is we can go ahead and get a podcast on the schedule to cover that. And
right,
you'll just knock it out, man.
just knock it out. Oh,
Assign a deadline to it, right? Public deadline.
right. That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I mean, this flywheel looks good to me. I think it makes sense. I think the higher prices increase sub revenue. I mean, there's multiple ways to increase revenue. So keeping it a little bit, I guess, more open-ended. on the W-2, I think makes sense. And but at the end of the day, the subs, if scope of work increases or you're cross-selling or whatever ways you're maybe increasing revenue outside of price, I don't know. I think there's going to be certain margin that you're going to be paying to your subs, ensuring that you have certain gross profit margin on your products, and the way that they make more money is, increasing your prices if they're gross money, unless you want to start taking home a lower gross profit, which probably you do not want to do.
Right. Yeah, and I will say that, and we'll talk more about it in the next episode. But there are certain ones where, I'll say to our PMs, and hey, if you can start him and he can just absolutely crush it, and the customer's delighted, and you're not going to have much issues, then we can look at increasing that percentage. I mean, we're
Yeah,
not sitting there talking to subcontract, hey, you get this percentage and this percent. We're giving them a number and a scope of work.
sure.
That being said, we know internally, yeah, there's a certain amount of, if we have less management, then that is worth something to us. So I thought
Yeah,
about that when I looked at the flywheel, and I thought that's way too numbersy and heady to insert into here. But it kind of goes into that idea of, you're you're going to have higher sub revenues if you deliver that premium experience. And so the more we can get men and women in our sub crews to catch on to that and to live that out, then the more they're going to thrive. So
for sure. Well, hopefully listeners were able to tune into YouTube and actually check this stuff out. Yeah, the I really like the Venn diagram as well at the top there, which
again, all the stuff is good to great. Jim Collins,
yeah,
that's a classic of sorts, I guess, in the business world.
100%. Yeah, highly recommend for listeners who have not read that book. Yeah, Shane, that was the first, dude. I don't think, I think, so I looked at our YouTube channel because I didn't know how many episodes we've recorded. And I think this is number 169. And I think
Wow.
that's the first time we've screen shared. So
There
that's
you
cool.
go. You
Yeah.
push me to action, push you to action. It's
Right.
win-win.
Yeah. This is a total, total change here.
Yeah.
Video first. Maybe we'll go video first. Um, awesome, man. So so investing into the people, have there been any drawbacks to that? Right? Because I think the fear would be, hey, we're going to invest into our people. We're going to focus on recruiting talented people, and then through that, we're going to, create this virtuous cycle and go to market and be able to attract more leads and sales and charge premium prices and all of that. But the fear would be, at least the fear that comes to my mind, would be kind of over investing, maybe before you have the
Right.
sales to kind of back it up, and then potentially going into a cash flow crisis or having to let people go, and now you're hurting the team morale. Have you have you encountered any I guess of those issues that would make people pause?
So we have done the pretty typical growth in terms of, okay, we got this much revenue with this many painters and we've sold this far ahead, so we can hire somebody else. I mean, so uh, uh, the only spots where I've probably hired before we're ready would be the office manager and a second project manager. So not as much in the painting, day-to-day field. That being said, one the places that I've really seen is kind of overinvestment or overdevelopment into people hurt us has been with our painters, because I've given people too much time. Made a bad hire and let it stretch out way too long.
Yeah,
And and that's a growth area that I've grown a lot in that. I want It's not that I want to be right. It's that
it's
I'm
just that you're never
hoping it
wrong.
works out. Like I want that person. I want it for that person. Like, man,
Right.
you have this opportunity. Like, let's go after it. And so I just keep hanging on, and so we've gotten a lot better at that. We're a lot quicker to let people go now for their good and our good. But I would say not having that, maybe maturity is the right word, or just kind of the experience maybe with that, to kind of have that discernment activated more quickly. Sticking to that flywheel would, essentially kind of hurt us. And when we did let somebody go, it's like almost like everybody on the team's like, oh, okay, thank you. And then thinking like, y'all should have been telling us this.
Yeah,
So now we have we went all the way back. We went all the way from 9 W2s down to 3, and so we as we added, they're more quick now to give us that feedback, and they know what we're looking for, and they know the type of person we want. So
sure. And it's hard to let people go. I think it's one of the hardest things in business if you care. But to your point right there, you're typically not even doing the person that you let go. You're typically not doing them a favor by not letting them go. Because
correct,
who wants to be failing in their job, in their career? No one wants to be failing in that. So as long as you're kind of just continuing in this state of failure, the company's suffering, the fellow employees are suffering, the clients are suffering, almost certainly, and that person is actually suffering because you're doing them a disservice long term.
right,
But it's
right.
tough. It's tough
It
to do
is
that.
really tough. It's really tough. Yeah,
Business is
yeah,
not for the faint of heart, right?
that's right. That's right.
It's a tough game. Um, Shane, dang man, this has been really great. I actually had no idea that you guys put together that second flywheel for the podcast. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Well, like I said, it's just one of those things where I hadn't even realized as I was looking back at it. I thought, oh, we're not just straight W2 anymore. We're hybrid. This looks a little differently, because
Yeah,
I don't give obviously like the same investment into subs, and it's different, but when we started looking at it, it was not as different. Now again, Matt and Maggie Kuiper or Jason Parrott, people have done subcontractors for a lot longer. And there's many different people around the country that have done this. Might immediately poke some holes in it. I don't know. I'm looking forward to kind of having some conversations when I see some of those people this summer. So
love it, dude. Is there anything else that you want to add prior to wrapping up this episode? We got one more.
yeah, I just think that all this stuff can sound really great as you and I are talking about it. And really sometimes beneath the surface, I feel like we have, this 2025 whatever fancy car, and you open the hood, and it's like a 96 like Corolla engine in there or something. And it's like it's not bad. It'll last a long time. And so we've got a long way to go. So I think I guess a lot of things we're sharing are still are in a lot of ways aspirational for us, and I think they always will be to a degree if we're continuing trying to grow. But I just I want to say that because I feel like that's more authentic. I guess is that, hey, we got a long way to go. We're striving, and this is where we're trying to head, but we have a long way to go.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I think it can be discouraging for people listening to podcasts, watching, motivational speakers, or you want to learn from obviously from people who have come before you or people who are doing things well, but it sometimes can feel like they're in just a totally another league, right? And they're so
Right.
far ahead, like you're just not going to get there. So I think I really appreciate you saying that. Hey, we have all these ideas. Maybe when you actually look at how they're being implemented, there are going to be hiccups. It's not going to be as refined and polished and perfect as it sounds on this podcast. So when you're looking at your company, you're thinking, man, Shane's company, gosh, why is his so perfect and mine is so imperfect? Maybe the disparity is not quite as big as you would otherwise think.
Absolutely.
Love that,
Absolutely.
brother. I appreciate you, Shane. Thank you for another phenomenal episode. I'm looking forward to the next one, man.
Awesome. Thank you. Me as well. Appreciate you.
If you want to learn more about the topics we discussed in this podcast and how you can use them to grow your painting business, visit paintermarketingpros.com/podcast for free training, as well as the ability to schedule a personalized strategy session for your painting company. Again, that URL is paintermarketingpros.com/podcast. Hey there, painting company owners. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give us your feedback. Let us know how we did. And also, if you're interested in taking your painting business to the next level, make sure you visit the Painter Marketing Pros website at paintermarketingpros.com to learn more about our services. You can also reach out to me directly by emailing me at brandon@paintermarketingpros.com, and I can give you personalized advice on growing your painting business. Until next time, keep growing.